Sullivan's Crossing Season 4, Episode 9 might be the episode where this season stops feeling uncertain and starts feeling irreversible. Because a title like We Can Work It Out sounds hopeful on paper, but in a show like this, hope usually shows up right before something painful forces everyone to admit what they have really been avoiding. And honestly, that is exactly the energy this trailer is giving off. Hey, what's up everyone? Come back to Breakdown Epic. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Now, based on the trailer and the early details we have, Episode 9 looks like one of the most emotionally important chapters of the season. Not because it is teasing one giant shocking twist, but because it feels like the kind of episode where quiet, emotional damage finally starts changing the shape of people's lives. In my opinion, this is the kind of Sullivan's Crossing episode that can look gentle on the surface and still leave half the fandom emotionally destroyed by the end. The first thing that really stands out is the title itself, We Can Work It Out. That sounds simple, almost comforting. Like maybe this is the chapter where people finally communicate, take a breath, and start repairing what has been breaking all season. But the more I think about it, the less I trust it. This show loves emotional irony. So when the title sounds this reassuring, I immediately start wondering whether it actually means the opposite. Not that everything gets fixed, but that everyone is finally forced to confront whether some things can still be fixed at all. And if that is what this episode is doing, then Maggie and Liam are clearly at the center of it. Their storyline looks like the emotional core of the episode. Liam seems determined to get Maggie away from the pressure, away from the noise, away from the constant emotional weight she has been carrying. And for a little while, it looks like he succeeds. She seems lighter, calmer, more like herself, or at least more like the version of herself that has been missing for a while. That matters, because Maggie has spent so much of this season carrying stress from every direction that seeing her actually relax stands out immediately. And I think the show is doing that on purpose. It wants us to feel that shift. It wants us to understand what Liam brings into her life emotionally. Not chaos, not pressure, relief. And honestly, that is what makes this episode potentially dangerous for the bigger love triangle. Because if Maggie feels peace with Liam at the exact moment her relationship with Cal feels most strained, then the emotional balance shifts whether she admits it or not. Now, of course, this is Sullivan's Crossing, so the second someone starts feeling calm, the universe usually decides that is illegal. The trailer strongly suggests that Maggie and Liam's outing does not stay peaceful for long. Something goes wrong, something serious enough to change the mood fast. We do not know the exact details yet, and I actually think it is better that way, but the tone in the footage makes it clear this is not just a small complication. It feels like the kind of event that forces two people to stop hiding from what they mean to each other. And in my opinion, that is exactly why this outing matters so much. Not just because it may put them in danger, but because danger in this show usually strips people down emotionally.
It removes the ability to perform, to dodge, to keep things vague. If Maggie and Liam are suddenly pushed into a high-stress situation together, then whatever feelings have been sitting quietly under the surface may not stay quiet anymore. That does not automatically mean romance explodes into the open in some huge dramatic scene. Sullivan's Crossing is usually smarter than that. But it could absolutely mean the emotional truth between them becomes impossible to ignore. Now let's talk about Maggie more broadly, because Episode 9 really feels like it could become a turning point for her as a character. For most of the season, Maggie has felt pulled in too many directions at once: responsibility, guilt, pressure, unresolved feelings, expectations from other people. The result is that she has been emotionally stretched thin. And when a character gets stretched that far for that long, eventually the story has to ask a simple question. What does she actually want? Not what she should want, not what makes the most sense on paper, not what would be easiest to explain. What does she want? That is why this episode looks so important to me. I do not think it is just about whether Maggie and Liam get closer.
I think it is about whether Maggie can finally stop living in reaction mode and start being honest about where her heart is leaning. Then there is Cal, and this is where things get even more emotionally loaded. Because even if the trailer is putting more visual emphasis on Maggie and Liam, the emotional consequences of that story absolutely land on Cal too. If he has already been feeling distance in the relationship, then episode 9 could be the point where that distance stops feeling temporary. It starts feeling real. In my personal opinion, Cal is the kind of character who is most dangerous when he is quiet. Not in a villain way, dangerous in an emotional damage way. He's not someone who explodes every 5 minutes. He absorbs, he waits, he tries to hold the shape of things together. But when someone like that finally starts realizing the relationship may be changing without them, it hits hard. And if this episode gives Cal one of those scenes where you can tell he understands more than anyone is saying out loud, that could be one of the saddest moments of the season. Now, outside of the Maggie Liam Cal situation, the trailer also hints that other relationships are moving toward confrontation. And I think that matters because Sullivan's Crossing usually hides its biggest shifts in those quieter conversations.
A look, a pause, a sentence said too late, a truth finally admitted without drama. That is why I think episode 9 could end up being deceptively powerful. Some viewers may go in expecting one big reveal, but I think the real damage could come from emotional honesty spreading across multiple storylines at once. The kind of honesty that does not feel explosive in the moment, but changes everything afterward. And that connects back to the title again. We can work it out. Maybe that is not a promise. Maybe it is a question. Can these people actually work it out? Can trust be rebuilt? Can emotional distance be closed? Can old feelings be managed once they stop pretending not to exist? That is the real tension of this episode. The danger in the trailer may raise the suspense, yes, but I actually think the bigger risk here is emotional. Once certain truths rise to the surface, some bonds may heal, and some may never go back to what they were. And that is exactly why episode 9 feels like setup for the final stretch of the season. If relationships shift here, then the finale does not need to create those emotional consequences from scratch. It can just let them hit. That is smart storytelling. Use episode 9 to move the emotional pieces into place.
Then let the last chapters deal with the fallout. Personally, I think this episode could end up being one of the strongest of the season if it leans into that balance properly. Suspense on one side, emotional truth on the other. That is when Sullivan's Crossing is at its best. Not when it chases shock for the sake of it, but when it lets a dangerous situation expose what people have been too scared to say. So my biggest prediction is this. Episode 9 puts Maggie and Liam through something that forces emotional clarity. It pushes Cal closer to realizing that silence is no longer protecting anything, and it begins setting the final emotional direction of the season in a way that is probably going to hurt. But anyway, that is my breakdown of Sullivan's Crossing Season 4, Episode 9, and my theories on what could happen next. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think We Can Work It Out is actually a hopeful title? Or is the show quietly warning us that some relationships are about to break for good? I will catch you in the next one.